¿Verdad? Ok, correcto, gracias. Pero cambia. No importa. Puedes hablar tú.
Empezamos cuando tú me digas ahora.
Bueno, en teoría se supone que se debe de escuchar que ya están.
Yo estuve en otro seminario después de que fue aquí, uno en línea. El presentador era del Banco de México.
Ah, sí, sí, sí. Ajá.
¿Hubo más después de aquel otro?
No, creo que ese fue
Este es,
Modera.
este es el tercero, entonces.
Este sería el tercero.
Ok.
Y me parece que va a haber un cuarto y último
Ok.
de este semestre.
De momento he estado en todos.
Sí, sí, así es.
¿Y hay fecha para ese último?
Todavía no. Creo que
Ok.
está por
Que ya está acabando el semestre, ¿no?
Ya, sí, sí. Sí, debe ser la primera, quizá la segunda semana de diciembre.
Ok, ok.
Es que nos cambiaron a Mari.
Mario, The IT Guy.
Sí.
Muy bueno. Pero ¿cómo que lo cambiaron? ¿Ya no está en pie?
Pidieron un permiso.
¿Está bien él?
Sí.
Ok.
Voy a hacer unas pruebas.
Ahora las pues yo no quería que se hacen llegar la transición a mitad.
Hoy no va a haber transmisión.
Al parecer todavía no inicia. ¿Empezamos?
O esperamos a la transmisión. No, no tengo problema, como ustedes prefieran. ¿Eh?
Hola, ya estamos en vivo en YouTube. Oh, ok, te agradezco, muchas gracias.
Welcome to our seminar on games, optimal control, and applications. It's a pleasure for me to introduce Professor Antonio Jiménez from CIDE. His research includes information economics, social networks, and in general, applied microeconomic theory. Today, he's presenting the paper Evidence Acquisition and Concealment in Voting on their diverse worldviews. So go ahead.
My pleasure. So thank you for having me. And for me, it's more natural to talk about these things in English, but please feel free to interact with questions at any time, either in English or Spanish. To those questions in Spanish, I will answer in Spanish. And this is joint work with Isabel Malquiso from the Econ Department at CIDE. And it is pretty much work in progress. So we would appreciate a lot your feedback, your comments, and your questions. So please feel free to interrupt anytime. So this paper is part of a project that has a political science and motivation. It is about applying game theoretical models, but our main motivation is more a voting context. So the story is as follows. There is a group of voters who must decide on whether to accept or reject a certain proposal. And there is also a leader. The leader does not vote, and that is not relevant for the implications of the model. So we can think here of perhaps a large number of voters, and then whether the leader votes or not is not important for our results. We would like to give the leader an institutional role. So the leader is enforced to make efforts to acquire evidence, and then he will decide how to disclose the evidence to the voters. So I will try to use the he for the leader and the she for the voters, because we all know that female make decisions and the voters are going to make decisions here. And so let me consider an example to illustrate my talk today. So let us go back one or couple of years ago during the pandemic, and suppose that a certain constituency must vote or must express their opinions, their preferences on whether or not to reopen the economy. So there is uncertainty, and the variable that summarizes the uncertainty is the actual state of the pandemic. So in this model, we are going to consider that all players agree on the best course of action, conditional on knowing the state. That is, if all voters think that the pandemic is going well, they would prefer to reopen the economy. And if they are asked, so think, for example, of a poll survey, they will express their vote, or they could even vote. So here we will talk about voting rules or about approval rates. So perhaps the leader is interested in considering those approval rates. So there is a voting there. Also, the leader, if he thinks that the pandemic is going well, he is also in favor of reopening the economy. So this is something that I would like to stress right away. There is no disagreement regarding fundamental preferences or preferences under certainty. Okay, so the leader has this institutional role of exerting at least minimum effort. So in the example, it could be that an international agency requires leaders to at least acquire a minimum of evidence. Then the leader will decide how to disclose that evidence, and in this way, voters will become better informed to make their decisions. So this is the spirit of the paper, okay? And so here, there are a number of contributions that started in the accounting literature that consider the following. What happens if as a leader, I make an effort, but at the end, I don't get any information. So the pandemic example, I think, is also useful to illustrate this point. So when the pandemic started, it was hard to figure out what evidence we got there. and if it was conclusive evidence. So here we are considering that with some positive probability, we are going to have inconclusive evidence or no evidence at all. So this consideration is commonly known as partial probability. And it is key that it breaks down the classical full disclosure result of the verifiable disclosure literature. So here we are considering evidence that consists of